and this is
on
something
it.
I really advocate for like left-leaning people to learn more about firearms. We let the right sort of gank this off us like a while ago, and it's, they don't want to listen to anyone who has a left-leaning opinion on it because they think they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
And that's
well,
why
that's one
like
reason.
I have a lot of conservative friends who like to, say, oh, uh, the left doesn't understand guns, and I'm like, oh, sure, sure, let's go,
You
let's see
know
how much you
what?
know.
Actually, when I'm talking to people and I bring up guns, they get really upset. But then when I start showing an understanding of like their viewpoint and my viewpoint, they actually say like, "Wow, I'm surprised you said that. I'm surprised you actually understood that." Most people just say that I'm dumb or I'm bad for owning a gun, or they say all guns are scary. But yeah, I'd be for that kind of background check. I'd be for, mental health checks. Yeah, sure. If I frame it to somebody like, "Hey, you're a good gun owner, right? You don't want some idiot being a gun owner, or not even being a gun owner, but you want gun owners to know what they're doing. We're not going to judge people like if you're smart or dumb, you shouldn't or should have a gun. But if you do have a gun, you probably should be trained in how to use that gun to cut down on accidental deaths. We need a more open society funding mental health and research to make sure people commit suicide less. If somebody is suicidal, there should be resources, and part of those resources should be saying, hey, if you have a gun in the home, keep the safety on, keep it in a case somewhere, so you don't have so you don't have it in mind. If you get really depressed, you don't even want to think about that you have a gun, because it might be the reason you kill yourself and that you are successful. Like I can have these conversations with people, but if you walk up and you're instantly like, "You're a killer. You are evil. You are going to be you're the reason that kids get shot in school," then I mean, I may as well just not talk to anybody if I'm gonna come at them like that. Because if I do come at them like that, I'm already alienating them. They're not going to listen to me, and my position is going to look weaker, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and you gotta realize like a lot of conservative gun owners, like owning a gun is a big part of their personality. Like
Yes, and this gets
it's
gets
it's a
into like social groupings and everything, and how you vote is going to be like you feel you like they literally feel like a facet of their life. They literally feel like this is being threatened by us.
exactly, and it's like I don't want to say hobby, but like again, it gets back to like what people feel about themselves personally. They tie a large part of their identity to their firearms and their use of them. Like I make a joke with my friends all the time because they'll be like, "Oh, when the whatever civil war happens, the leftists are," and I'm like, "Well, I own a bunch of guns and I know how to use them, and I'm sure you think you're John Wick, but in a real situation, I don't know about that, chief." You
Yeah.
know,
Everybody has a fantasy in their heads that they're going to be in a grocery store with their I don't know, the gun I'm
with
bringing
their
up. What's the standard issue like police pistol, the 9 millimeter? I'm pretty sure. But like
it's a
they're
Glock.
yeah, it's like a silver. It's silver, I think. It's whatever. But
Well, it also depends on what like in Philadelphia, it's the Glock 40.
Glock 40. Oh, what is the one for? Wait, what pistol? But
It
yeah,
all
they think they're
depends
gonna
on
be
what.
there. They think they're gonna be the superhero that is in the grocery store. Like the good guy with a gun is like a image to them of like a savior, and they want to be that person. And if you are against, if you're for gun regulation, you're against the good guy with the gun. And if the good guy with the gun, and I don't want to bring race into it or anything, but they don't want bad guys to have guns, whatever that might mean to
Exactly.
them.
I
And
know what you
yeah,
mean.
that's part of the reason they're really scared.
Yeah. And also, it just comes from a lot of fundamental misunderstandings about guns. Like I work in security, so like I know all about self-defense. Like I did martial arts for a long time, and it seems like people don't understand that like the gun is not like an end all be all. You can have a gun like in a home defense situation. If you don't know how to use that gun, or your nerves aren't there,
Mm-hmm.
that gun's just it's going to get taken from you.
Yeah, yeah. And people come back with the argument like, if I even have a gun, that can dissuade people. Like if somebody's in my house and I bring out a gun, I don't even have to shoot it. They're just gonna get scared and run away, which does I'd have to look at evidence for that. But you are right. But there is the technology available that the NRA is against. Andrew Yang talked about it a lot. The technology to have guns manufactured in a way that can be customized to be personal, right? So if I could buy a pistol that's made for me, anybody else picking up this gun would not be able to use this gun to harm anybody other than hitting people over the head with it,
Yeah,
because
like
this
it's
technology would allow only me to be able to fire this gun. But the NRA is against that. That'd be perfect in situations when we talk about like they say like a single woman should have a gun in her house to protect herself against intruders. Sure, make this technology widely available so that woman doesn't hurt herself, or in turn, so that gun isn't taken and used by someone else. Like we can, there are solutions to this, and I know a lot of gun owners who would like that, who would like that cool gun thing, like oh, a gun that only works when I shoot it. I mean, that'd be perfect for like a self defense scenario. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, that technology, like the DNA and sort of fingerprint safety type stuff. I don't I don't want to sound like I'm against it, but it's the technology is still kind of expensive and
Well, that's
like
why it needs
having
to be it needs to start being produced, because as markets get more mature, like we see this with smartphones and everything, they start to even out in price, and they start to get more mass produced. The demand goes up and supply goes up to follow, and more innovation is made. But if it's kept off the market, it's not going to have a chance to ever get better. There just won't be the demand behind it to push it for capitalism, innovation, all that stuff. So I feel
yeah,
like I do agree with you. The technology, it seems utopian, the technology, but it seems pretty impressive if you look at how it's used in practice. In practice, and if you compare it to other, I know this is kind of baseless, but if you compare it to anything else, I feel like it can get a lot better very quickly. Like there's millions of phones being produced daily that have like really accurate face signatures and freaking finger
hmm
print scanners and all that stuff. So yeah, biometrics aren't
yeah,
great. But think about this: if you're a single woman, if you are a woman in general, you are more likely to have smaller hands. Or if you are anybody with smaller hands, if you are anybody who is not strong enough to defend themselves physically or whatever, or if you are somebody that is not able to use a gun correctly, if you get that gun, like that gun customly made for you, the biometrics of it, there's no way that gun mistakes someone else to be you that's breaking into your home, or it's going to be very unlikely, in my opinion. Especially if it's made for like tiny hands and short fingers and all that stuff. However, it would be sensing it. I think that's unlikely for it to fail in that regard, unless if it just
yeah,
didn't work. I guess that's a concern.
yeah. I'd agree with you. Okay, and one thing that really that got me going about the last caller was the whole defending against the tyrannical government thing. That like that was intended, like the Second Amendment was intended when we had to raise militias against the British Army because we didn't have a regular army. We were just colonies at that point. There was no uniform, military body. And the thought that nowadays any personal owned weapon would be suitable to carry out, like, I don't know, some kind of revolution or coup or anything against the government is kind of
Oh,
absurd.
yeah, and the idea that we would have enough of people trained in the correct capacity, and like it's really hilarious to think if the US military really, because government doesn't mean anything. The government coming against us doesn't mean shit. If you're really concerned, if you are really concerned about your personal safety against a tyrannical government, then you should be focusing on people owning the government. You should be focusing on taxing the wealthy and making sure working people have actual power in the government. Because if the military truly took a turn for the worse somehow and somehow decided to do a coup, yeah, yeah, some guys in the middle of Pennsylvania or something, yeah, they're gonna stop the impending coup from the military that literally probably has a machine right now that could, the heart attack gun or whatever, the conspiracy about that.
Yeah.
I guarantee they have that stuff. Yeah, the main goal should be getting people power in government.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it goes against like it. it shows to me at least a fundamental misunderstanding of like warfare and combat. Because if you look at successful like guerrilla movements,
Hmm.
um, generally like take Vietnam for an example. The NVA and Viet Cong were so successful against the United States for a couple reasons. One is we didn't want to move troops into North Vietnam for fear of angering the Soviet Union and getting into a war with them. Second is because we couldn't do that, the NVA and the Viet Cong could get a steady stream of supplies from the Soviets and China. This allowed them to replace any lost equipment or anything really quickly. Same, you could say the same for the American Revolution too. Without France or Spain intervening, uh, we would have lost, and quickly too.
Hmm.
Like to fight a war, like to fight a ground war in the U.S. of all places, a massive country with no air support, no real logistical supply train or anything, because there'd be no coordination between these people. They
It's
just,
it's like the good guy with the gun thing. Although the good guy with the gun thing does hold some merit in certain situations, I guess. I mean, that's a different discussion though. But it's all about a peace of mind. It's not really about a piece in the pocket, meaning a gun in your holster or whatever. It's about being comfortable. It's like I don't know. If it came to this, I want to be able to give a fighting chance. And home defense is a serious thing too. I mean, if you do live in a bad area, like, and Democrats don't look at this enough, it's not just rural people who want to have their guns. It's not. That's very, very far from the case. It's also a lot of people who are in urban areas. A lot of black people who would who would not benefit from a government crackdown on confiscating weapons. So I think a lot of white people who are Democrats tend to overlook stuff like that. It's not just a bunch of hick Trump supporters or whatever. This is a big thing. Guns are, they serve an important cultural and practical role in American society. Um, and understanding these cultures is important, like hunting culture and all of this is a
mhm.
big deal. And in rural areas, I don't know. It's another branding issue, I think, because a lot
Yeah,
of what
and
we want to
that,
get done isn't even anti-Second Amendment. Honestly, if we want to go down all the
yeah.
hypotheticals and everything, we're not really anti-Second Amendment, whatever that means. I mean, if I was talking about like federal government coming into your hometown, federal agents coming to strip you of your gun, yeah, okay, that'd be scary. That'd be pretty freaky in my opinion. But we're not talking about anything even like remotely close.
Yeah, that's what I would, because I advocate for the Second Amendment, but it's only in a personal slash practical defense application. And I just think that a lot of conservatives that support like the Second Amendment and they base it on this resisting government tyranny thing are really just sort of buying into propaganda that's pushed to them by like libertarian nut jobs.
Yeah, like
And
a
it's
society past what we have right now, you need to be able to protect yourself when everything falls apart. The Tim Pool type of mindset.
and it's like that's why
Tom
I think
McDonald.
libertarian thinking is so corrosive because it
Oh yeah.
not not only does it affect like people's economic takes, it affects their societal
And it
takes
makes them
because
sit out of the fight, right? Because they don't
hmm
understand how to actually fight against power. Them, like Tom McDonald fans, for example. I love bringing them up. The libertarians. A lot of them are libertarians who would be, probably Trump supporters, but they like weed and stuff. And they're okay. They're decent on social issues sometimes. But if we talk about corrupting power in a governmental system, the number one thing that corrupting power in a government wants you to do is to sit out of the process and vote like third party or just not
yep.
vote at all. That's the number one thing they want you to do. They don't want you to be involved. They don't want people to have power in the government. But this libertarian mindset makes people think like, oh, I understand now. We cannot fall to the corrupt system. They sound like I don't know, they sound like vegans who are like who hate everybody that like eats meat or like socialists that hate everybody who participates in capitalism. They just sound like another form of radicalism that seems less radical because they don't have any actual principles other than "don't tread on me." Um, it's just as libertarianism, um, and I agree with this 100%. I think libertarianism is much more idealistic than perfect communism, honestly. I think perfect communism has a better
Yes.
chance of actually working in our world than libertarianism does. That's how wacky I think libertarianism is.
Yeah, and
When
that's
Walmart
what I
and
tell.
Amazon get their mercenary forces, and we're like, all right, are ready for the war against Amazon? Okay.
Yeah, and that's like what I tell all my libertarian friends this all the time because I, this libertarianism has become like it's like a cancer on conservatives because ever since Reagan and the supply side economics, you know, push this libertarian thinking has sort of grafted itself onto the right wing, and it's poisoned the well in so many things because either they vote closer to conservatives because they feel closer to them, or they sit out the vote completely because they think there's nothing they can do to change the system and they get apathetic and jaded, so they don't participate. It's just so frustrating. Like at least the freaking fascists, they want to participate in a horrible way, but
Yeah, but they're smart about it. And oh my goodness, talking to that person and oh, what did he say about involvement in government? He's like, we need more clean politicians, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I voted for Bernie Sanders. And in their mind, government literally means bad. Like more government bad, less government good. They don't see any
mm-hmm,
nuance in that picture. Like, hey, what if we had a people-owned government, or what if our government um what if our government extended into the workplace in some regard? It doesn't need to be socialism. It can literally be anything that shifts the power into the people's hands in some general direction whatsoever. Whether that be even with stimulus. There's so many poor people I know, poor working class people who don't know they're poor, who are angry about the stimulus going out and giving poor people money, and they got the money. Like, oh, we didn't earn this, we didn't ask for this, we don't want handouts, our kids are going to be paying for this someday. Like poor people will always vote against their own class. They will always say, I'm not going to take money from the government. Rich people always vote with their class, and they always say, you know what, government, give me money because they're smart. They know how to play the system. I want these freaking poor people to be a little bit selfish collectively, not like selfish in the sense of my personal life is all that matters, but like as a collective, as a member of the working class. And I don't mean any socialist LARP shit. I mean like in general as a real person who needs to work and fight for their life every day. As that person, you should have some freaking pride. And you should be, you shouldn't be okay with being freaking ran over your entire life. And you shouldn't sit down and just take it because you're told to. Because you're told America is some land of like, whoever works harder is going to be the person who's successful. That simply isn't true. Whoever is born higher is going to be successful. A couple people from the bottom get to the top, but nobody from the top ever gets to the bottom. And people, I'm sick of people taking it and being okay with it. It's so annoying.
yeah, I mean like I said, a lot of people like lower middle class and poor, they they're not really in their day-to-day life does not involve politics. It has nothing to do with politics.
So politics ends up becoming culture to them, instead
Yeah,
of like so that's the difference in political science between group theory, which is like you vote based on social groups and culture and stuff like that, and populist theory, which says you vote on like how much you know policy. Kyle Kalinske would probably say, sorry, Tom, that you're still banned on Twitch, by the way. But Kyle Kalinske would probably say the populist theory is correct, that people vote on policy and that's it. So like that's why he tends to be like very class based. He thinks Trump supporters would simply not like Trump if Bernie Sanders ran because he thinks every voter does in depth uh evaluation of policy, and he thinks voters are rational. But when we look at the actual data and stuff, like it's more on groups, it's more on who you know. So people who are poor in politics, they picked up pictures of Donald Trump for their not dump trucks for their trucks for a reason. They picked up big paintings of Donald Trump for a reason. He meant something to them. He connected to their culture. He connected to their pride. He connected to what made them them. He is what they think they are. This rich guy who talks like shit, who doesn't give a shit, who doesn't have to, who doesn't take shit from anybody, but he's really a big insecure asshole. But he to them is what they want to be. They want to be this big
Yep.
narcissist that other people have to bow down to. That gets to walk
Yep. Every
down
man's a
golden.
king.
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm gonna be a millionaire someday. I don't want to tax the rich because I don't want to punish success. Like, dude, you're not succeeding. You're sucking at the bottom right now, and people are giving it to you, and you're just taking it. Um, and it's
Yeah. People.
it's angering.
It seemed people think that like I don't know. They seem to misinterpret like capitalism in the way that it works. Like they think that just because they participate in the system means they'll get ahead or they'll become successful because they've seen someone do it or they know someone that made a lot of money doing whatever, smart stock trades or whatnot. When in reality, those anecdotal examples just fall apart because it's not the case. You're most likely never going to be a millionaire.
Hmm. And they don't
So
understand financial markets or anything. Like, for example, if you have money, your money makes money. Once you have $1 million, that money is gonna multiply faster than people are able to make salary. Once you have that first,
yep,
and I mean $1 million like net worth. If you invest 500K, or whatever in the market in the S&P 500, even you're gonna get 5% gains on that every day if you want to. And you're gonna make more in half a year than people are gonna make in multiple years. And
yeah,
people don't understand that the connection between labor and production and the currency you actually get access to doesn't correlate correctly whatsoever. But people assume, uh, if you have money, you worked hard. If you worked hard, you have money. Therefore, if I or if Elon Musk has all this money, he must have worked hard. If I don't have that money, or other people around me don't have money, they must not work hard. Then I bring up examples to them, like, hey, what about police officers and nurses and doctors? Jeff Bezos owns more wealth than 100 million people. What about all these people combined? Are you saying these people don't, or are you saying these people don't work hard enough, or whatever? And that usually gets some people to say like, okay, maybe that's a little bit messed up. And I'm like, why is it messed up? How do we fix it? How do we make sure? How do we make sure the hardest working people in our society are able to actually provide for themselves, are actually able to have decent lives, and are actually able to put their kids through a good situation? How do we do this? How long is it going to take before people stop being little babies and stop virtue signaling? Yeah, Cookie
hmm
Bot. Elon Musk not only worked hard, he worked the hardest. Like, all these people looking up to figures like Donald Trump, like Elon Musk, all these fakes that don't work, that actually make like Donald Trump literally didn't work his entire life, made his money off of branding deals, and started off with millions or with
a
billions.
small loan of $1 million.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a loan, and it was for like 500 million. But nobody gets it.
Yeah,
And he actually paid people to make investments for him. That's why he doesn't have an even bigger net worth, because he paid investment bankers. He talks about it in his book. He's not even self-made in that regard. Um, God. Anyways, thanks for calling in.
yeah,
This is a great conversation, actually.
no problem, man. I just the previous guy's takes kind of upset me a bit, but I really like having someone I can voice this to because, uh, again, I work in security. I have a lot of conservative friends. In fact, I'd say the majority of them are conservative. And it's like, I get on Discord and, we're playing a game or whatever, and then they say something stupid like about Biden or Obama. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I want to, fight with five people at once.
hmm I wish I could I wish I could run like 5,000 campaigns and use my rhetorical techniques and my communications and all that stuff. I wish the world was like that, because I really do feel like what we're talking about here can be applied and get really positive results. But I mean, getting to that
Yeah, and
point is
that,
difficult and costs a lot of money.
and just as like a final thing, I think people on the left need to be more. Uh, I think there's a reaction, especially like on Twitter and stuff, to like conservative talking points, to like try to shut them down as quickly as possible with like statements that really don't add to anything. Where I think talking with conservatives in real life, I've had a lot of success just kind of breaking things down simply and slowly, and trying, like, well, what do you think about this? Or, if you look at this tax policy, it doesn't really affect you. Like the whole, always like the Bernie Sanders point, he's going to raise my taxes. It's like, well, maybe, but it wouldn't be that much, and probably not much on you at all. So it's, you know,
Hmm. Yeah,
I
it's
think,
explain things like people are children, treat people like children in every way except being condescending. Because the
I
learning process is pretty similar.
yeah, I would say treat, treat even conservatives, treat them like it's your buddy and you're at the bar having a beer, explain it in a way that you think that they would understand. Because a lot of the times
We
they've
gotta
never heard,
chill. We gotta
they've never,
relax.
they've never even heard the points you're going to make to them
Yeah, they
because
think
there's,
we're gonna be like calling them racist and shit, and like saying they have white privilege.
yeah. And that's why, I mean, again, that's why I like you, because you're very pragmatic and you
I don't even
seem,
care about that. I think I'm gonna stop saying pragmatic because I mean, at this point, I just feel like it's common sense. I mean, it's
yeah, true.
like at this point, I'm like, you know what? We're treating people like they're people. And we're trying to talk to
Hmm.
them like they're people. I had a lot
Hmm.
of misconceptions about how people think, and I keep on trying to take those down a notch. Because I mean, I'm not getting a proper view of how the world is looking at lefty Twitter. If I looked at that all day, I'd probably think all these people are literal Nazis that want to kill every black person they see.